announce that Philadelphia's drinking water will not be impacted by the spill in Bucks County that occurred over the weekend. The tap water from the Baxter Drinking Water Treatment Plant will remain safe to drink. Sampling has not detected any substance from the spill in the raw water basin or the water treatment system at Baxter, and models tracking the flow and tide of the Delaware River show the potential threat is passing us. The officials here tonight will provide further details in a moment, but I want to first commend the city departments and our partners on the ground who acted so swiftly. No residents were exposed to unsafe chemicals in the city's tap water. City officials exercised caution when more information was needed, and we couldn't rule out the risk of contamination. Now we can all confidently say the threat has passed. I repeat, all of the city's drinking water is safe to drink and will not be impacted by the spill. I know this has been an uncertain time for residents, but you can be confident knowing that you have the officials tasked with ensuring your well-being and health will always put your safety above everything else. You can drink and use your water with peace of mind. I'll ask Deputy Managing Director Mike Carroll to come up and do a presentation.
Well, first, I'm thrilled that the mayor is able to announce the all clear for Philadelphians to enjoy their drinking water. It's safe, it's contaminant free, and we can all enjoy it to drink, to cook with, to wash with, whatever you want. So I will drink to that. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. I just want to let you know it's been a pleasure to work with the whole team. Everyone's been working real hard since Saturday, to try and figure this situation out in terms of our response, all the testing and so forth. I'll give you a quick overview of what we've been doing over the last few days here. It's involved hundreds of samples of water that have been taken in the river outside the plant, in the raw water basin, where we bring the river water in throughout the whole treatment process, and even in the finished water basin before we release it into the distribution system. Again, I want to reiterate, throughout the whole event, no contaminants were ever found in Philadelphia's drinking water. And I just want to commend the Philadelphia Water Department for all their efforts in making sure that that was true, that we can guarantee that nobody ever drank any water that had any contamination from this event. It remains safe for everybody to drink, to use, and like I said, whatever you want to do with the water, it's safe for you. Next slide. So in thanking people, I certainly want to point out the hard work of the Philadelphia Water Department, but we did not do it alone. The rest of the administration's involvement is certainly something I want to highlight, beginning with the Office of Emergency Management, which coordinated all the efforts of other departments. I want to thank the Mayor's Office of Communications, who worked so hard with us to make sure that we were getting this message through to the public, through cycles of testing, through updates, through all the extensions of the window for people to drink safe water. Very challenging work, and they've been on top of it from the very beginning, so I just want to acknowledge their work. I also want to thank the Health Department, which helped us get a handle on the issues with respect to the minimum thresholds for health, did a lot of outreach with the healthcare community to make sure that their questions were answered and we could incorporate their knowledge to the extent that it was going to be helpful for the work we were doing. And a variety of other city departments which came together, made sure that we were coordinated in the event that we had to do any of the contingencies that we had been working on throughout this whole process. Also, we had a lot of partners outside of city government. Foremost, I want to thank the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and Secretary Rich Negrin for coordinating that effort. They were the ones who were on scene in Bucks County, addressing the situation there and making sure that we were getting the best information from all the stakeholders outside of the city. I want to thank Aqua Utilities, Aqua Water, the utility in Bucks County, for their work in helping us prioritize testing for these contaminants, working with us, taking our samples and getting us the information in a very timely way so that we could make decisions. Of course, FEMA for their work coordinating our efforts with the rest of the federal government, providing us insights on best practices in terms of preparedness, not just for our city, but also for all of our residents and businesses. The EPA for also working with us to understand any potential impacts that could have been an issue if we did have problems with our water, which again, we did not and never did have. Of course, the U.S. Coast Guard was right on the scene conducting testing throughout the whole event in the river itself. And without that insight, it would have been much more challenging for us to make our decisions about what to do as this event unfolded. The Delaware Valley Incident Command is a resource we rely on for innumerable events here in the Delaware Valley, and so we're very grateful to have them behind us, helping to coordinate with our regional partners. I want to call out the emergency management teams in all the counties, Bucks County, Delaware County. Of course, the other counties weren't directly affected necessarily at all, but they were always on the calls, helping us coordinate, letting us know what resources that they had to help unify our efforts throughout the region. And I especially want to call out the efforts of the Salvation Army, who provided food, drink, and all sorts of sustainment for our staff throughout this whole effort. I really want to congratulate them, great partners through all the events that we have to go through here. So I want to speak a little bit about our posture through this event. And we determined very early that we were going to maximize our vigilance. We did everything we could do, and we wanted to communicate, and I want to communicate to you tonight. It was important to us to be able to guarantee that none of our customers were exposed to any contaminants. And so that is why we took the measures we did in order to not just limit and control the flow of water into Baxter Water Treatment Plant, but also to stand up the testing that we took and to communicate to people as much as we could what we felt was safe for them to do. There's a perspective, I guess, some folks have that you under-communicate this stuff and, you just kind of let situations play out, but that's not the way the Philadelphia Water Department works. The Philadelphia Water Department has a reputation nationally for protecting the health and welfare of its customers. It's one that the staff, the commissioner, takes very seriously, and it's that ethic that we brought to this situation. So there was never really any question that we weren't going to be fully transparent. There was never any question that we weren't going to operate from the motivation that we would prepare people, that we would make sure that we operated with an abundance of caution, and we've used that phrase a lot, and that means that we're doing everything we can to guarantee that at no point anyone is at risk from any of these contaminants. So I also want to thank folks in the public who were supporting us throughout this event. I know there was a lot of anxiety among people who are residents, people who run businesses. I can appreciate that. We always want to do everything we can to make sure people have information, that we make that information as clear as possible. That can be challenging in a dynamic situation, but I really am thankful for the support that we did get, and we will continue to work with the public so that they understand how they can be prepared in event of any type of emergency which involves water or other aspects of their lives here in Philadelphia. So again, we're thankful for folks who were patient with us as we work this situation out, and we'll continue to try and be vigilant to make sure that we're protecting people every chance that we can. Just a quick overview again of what we've been through the last few days. So again, there was a chemical spill at a manufacturing site in Bristol Township, Bucks County. The site was located about 13 miles north of the Baxter Water Treatment Plant. The spill occurred shortly before midnight on Friday, March 24th. The Philadelphia Water Department was notified about 12:37 a.m. on Saturday of this event. We shut the intakes at Baxter Water Treatment Plant as a precaution so that we could be fully assured that there was no contaminated water in our system while we made decisions about what to do next. And that decision making occurred immediately after we became aware of the contamination in Bristol Township. And so that situation was one where we knew we needed to get more information. We knew we needed to stand up testing protocols. We knew we needed to coordinate with our partners, and that work began immediately on Saturday. So the event itself consisted of just over 8,000 tons, actually, of contaminant into the water. That contaminant, once it gets into the water, becomes dispersed, diluted in the tributary. It works its way down the tributary towards the Delaware River. It consisted of chemicals involved in the making of latex emulsions. And it occurred, we were provided information that allowed us to understand the chemistry involved around 1:30 p.m. on Saturday. We understood from that information that there was a potential that the water that would reach the plant would be contaminated. Folks should know that this is one plant of 3 plants that the city operates. In addition to the Baxter Water Treatment Plant, we have a facility at Queen Lane in the northwest section of Philly, and one at the Belmont Treatment Facility. So this is the only of those 3 plants that draws from the Delaware River. The others draw from the Schuylkill watershed. So the Schuylkill watershed was never at any risk because there was no contamination in the Schuylkill watershed. So we knew we could focus our efforts around operations at Baxter. The primary substances of concern were 3 chemicals involved in the production of these latex emulsion, which we identified as butyl acrylate, ethyl acrylate, and methyl methacrylate. So butyl acrylate is a substance where we had a testing standard to work with, and we immediately worked with our partners at Aqua Water to establish that they had that capacity to run those tests to identify whether there was any risk at the minimal level. And that's why we worked with them, and we were basically running up samples to them throughout the whole event so that we could get information. In order for us to get those samples taken, get them to the folks in Bucks County at Aqua Water, for them to test it and bring the results back, is a window of between 6 and 10 hours, depending on what's involved on their end. And so that speaks to some of the time frames that we're shifting over time, because as we take water in to make sure that we're able to maintain a minimum level of water, if we can go to the next slide, we have to make sure that we have enough information to provide people about what that window is. So that 8 hours was very important every day for us to make sure we got the test back before we communicated how much water people had. So now I'm going to bring up John Strafiti and Kelly Anderson. And John is our administrative scientist with the Bureau of Laboratory Services, and he can talk about the testing which was undertaken within Baxter Water Treatment Plant. And Kelly is the director of PWD Office of the PWD Office of Watersheds. And Kelly has specific expertise in the modeling that was done so we could understand the window for this whole event and what was going on in the river. John?
Thank you. And again, to be clear, this is specifically related to the samples that we ourselves collected. This does not include the additional samples collected by the Coast Guard, the EPA, the discharger, so on and so forth. So do keep in mind this is a subset of the total amount of information that we used to protect the city and come to the conclusions that we have. So briefly, we had approximately 12 locations, including the Delaware River itself and many locations through the Baxter Treatment Plant, and where water re-entered into our distribution system. And these were monitored with different frequencies depending on what was occurring at the plant. If we were bringing water into the raw water basin, we would focus on that particular water. If we were doing general profiling, we would look at what's going on through the entire plant to make sure things were operating properly. Again, frequency varied. We targeted what specifically was going on. We were looking for 2 things. First and foremost, the organic molecules that are residuals from manufacturing this latex product, because those are the particular things that could potentially be hazardous. In addition, there's a lot of plastic material that could have affected operations at the plant if it gummed up some parts of our process, affected equipment. So we kept an eye on both of these. In keeping an eye on the organics, we use something called gas chromatography mass spectrometry. It's excellent at detecting very, very small amounts of organic molecules. Looking for the plastics, we use something called infrared microspectroscopy. And that's unique because it looks at the vibrations in molecules. We can tell the difference between a particle of plastic, a particle of sand, a particle of silt, or a particle of ferric chloride, which we use in the treatment process. What's the smallest amount we can detect? Well, with gas chromatography mass spec, we can detect down to single parts per billion of these particular molecules. And you can think of that in terms of if you had $1 billion, and you gave somebody $1, the amount that person has is 1 part per billion. Looking with infrared microspectroscopy, you can look at an individual particle, typically on the size of a micron, and identify what it's made of. So these are both very powerful techniques. They provide different types of information that we were able to use to both track what's going on in the plant and ensure that this spill was not going to affect plant operations or public health.
Thank you. I would like to speak to the Delaware Valley Early Warning System and the capabilities that we have to understand how this potential plume could have impacted our water treatment plant along the Delaware. So the Delaware Valley Early Warning System is most importantly a partnership between our neighboring water suppliers, the agencies, so DEP, DRBC, EPA, at helping us communicate rapidly when information about these types of spills or accidents can impact the city. So at 12:37, when that event was reported onto the early warning system, it triggered a notification that went out in moments to any of the area around the intakes that could have been impacted. Aside from the notification that goes out, there's also spill modeling that we have been performing as a component of the Delaware Valley Early Warning System, but also additional modeling that helps us understand how this potential plume moves through the tidal cycle in the Delaware River. So with the work that the labs were doing and the agencies were doing collecting samples, the samples were able to assure us that there was non-detects in the water supply entering the plants. But our plant managers were able to make a rapid decision right after the early part of the morning to be able to close the intakes to ensure that no contamination entered into our system at that time. There's 10,000 square miles of watershed above the city of Philadelphia in this section of the river. So you think that's a lot of land area. So we're very equipped, we're very responsive, and we have a lot of information that goes into informing how we're making decisions about how we're pulling water into our plant and communicating these types of situations with our partners at the state, our partners at the other water utilities. So Delaware Valley Early Warning System was absolutely instrumental at making sure that we were able to get that information out quickly and to inform decision-making that was happening for water users along the Delaware River.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Kelly. So I think we can talk a little bit about the public notification, and again, want to make sure people know, on Saturday we were working on this issue. About 6 o'clock on Saturday, we updated our website with the information we had at hand. That included the fact that we were notified about the spill and information about where it took place and information about how we were coordinating. On Saturday at 10 p.m., we did our first briefing of the event regarding our response. At that time, we could clearly identify no potential risk to drinking water since the intakes were closed. After that meeting, we engaged immediately in some work to evaluate how much water we had on hand and how we could use that information to inform future communications to the public. As a result of all of that work, we decided we needed to reopen the intake at 12:15 a.m. on Sunday morning so that we could maintain these minimum levels within the plant so that equipment wouldn't get damaged, so we had enough water in the supply for fire safety and other essential uses. And then we closed those intakes at 5 a.m. when we established we had enough water for all those purposes, 5 a.m. on Sunday, March 26th. So at 10 a.m. March 26th, we had another in-person press briefing. We also made it public that the intakes had been opened overnight. And then, out of an abundance of caution, we put forth the message that people might consider using bottled water after 2 p.m. And that 2 p.m. time frame is based on the evaluation that we had made about the water that was in the supply, which we were confident about, but also, significantly, a very high level of margin for error. And so this is, again, out of that abundance of caution that we were operating from to make sure we were giving people the best information we could to guarantee they would not be exposed to any contaminants. Now, our evaluation of our control over the plant, how quickly water moves through the plant, is affected by a couple variables. One is the consumption rates. And so we have ideas about how quickly the city of Philadelphia consumes water, but we also want to understand in real time whether those assumptions are correct. And so evaluation of that is important. We also do have some control over how quickly water moves from the raw water basin through the treatment process and then is ready to enter the distribution system. That control is very useful for us in emergencies, but people need to understand it adds some stress to the system. So we have to moderate that control under certain circumstances and be very thoughtful about how and when we exert it. So these are other factors that we use to determine confidently that people could drink their water until 2 p.m. on Sunday. As the day advanced, we got more information, and so as 5:15 p.m., we were able to use that updated information to let people know that as of 5:15 p.m. Sunday, people could confidently use their water until 11:59 p.m. Monday night. And then on Sunday at 9:30, we did come forward and had another press release which provided these updates. We updated our social media, we did web information, and again, this reiterated the message that the folks in the city would be comfortable and safe drinking their water at least through 11:59 p.m. Monday. So again, just want to reiterate that at this point in time, we will not be impacted by this event. We will not experience any contamination from any of these chemicals in our drinking water. Your water was never contaminated. It's always been safe to drink, and we can say it's going to be safe to drink moving forward. And so we can give you the all clear. At no point were any contaminants detected in the Delaware River in the vicinity of the Baxter Water Treatment Plant, and no contaminants were identified within the plant or anywhere else in our distribution system. Your tap water has remained safe throughout this whole process, and it will be safe from this point moving forward. So I'm very gratified to say we are all clear. I'm happy to take questions if folks have some.
It sounded like yesterday the benchmark was Thursday, so I'm wondering what changed with that, unless I completely misread.
No. So what we said was that we expected the conditions in the river to pass sometime between Wednesday and Thursday. And the additional thing that we wanted to make clear, and I'll reiterate here, is that even after that point, we were going to continue testing, and we will continue testing for some time until, in coordination with the Department of Environmental Protection, they let us know it's appropriate to stop. But the information we got, which we were able to base this decision on, is that first, the testing in the river, which was conducted by the Coast Guard, still revealed no contamination. And then the water that we brought in this morning, between I think 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. contained no contamination. So we know we have enough water on hand now to last us for about 48 hours from when that moves through the raw water basement, through treatment and out. And when we open the gates again, we know that that water is going to be in that window where there's no contamination in the river. Our modeling's been updated to reflect all the information we've been getting in real time. The Coast Guard samples are incorporated into that information. And again, because we were able to bring in water and test it, we know we have enough water on hand, so Philadelphians have nothing to worry about.
Mike, I'm sorry. Mike, I have one slide. Can you go to that?
Okay, sorry about that, Jason. Okay, so what is next? All right, so as I'm saying, the modeling is indicating that the spill's dispersed. That incorporates the information we got from the Coast Guard. We are, like I said, going to continue testing, and that's going to be in coordination with DEP. We will not stop testing until DEP tells us confidently that they're satisfied that the approach we're taking allows for a reduction in testing. That doesn't mean we're going to stop testing. It means we're going to reduce the testing that we're doing. We will post this information that I'm giving you now online, and we'll make sure information is available through our web-based portals moving forward. So if everyone is interested in keeping up to date with what's going on, they can go to water.phila.gov. We've got blogs we're going to be keeping up to date, and you'll be able to get that information. And I'll go to the next slide, and I think that shows us where these sites are. Phila.gov will also have more information, and on Twitter, we're going to concentrate our efforts on the @philly.h2o handle moving forward. I'm sorry, Jason, go ahead.
Are you making this announcement now at 6:30 versus 2 or 3 or whatever? Because this is the amount of time it took to get the test results from this morning.
So we got results a little while ago. We wanted to make sure we were able to get one message out, one clear message out for people. We've had a chance to consult not just within the administration to make sure everybody knows what's going on and what they need to do moving forward, but also with elected officials. And now we're happy to say that we're sharing with the public. Like I said, these tests they take about 6 to 10 hours depending. We opened the intake, we closed the intake early this morning, and it's taken that much time to get the confirmation we needed in order to move forward.
I know everyone's been working really hard on this, and drinking water is now safe. Looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently after seeing maybe the panic?
Yeah. Well, again, we provide the information that people need, and we want to make sure we provide as much information as possible because we believe more information is always better. And so from that perspective, we're really proud of the effort that we put in. We're proud that we got the information out. We were transparent. Like we've said probably a dozen times, we operated from an abundance of caution, which we will continue to do and always do. Of course, we're going to take a look at how things worked. We'll get involved in a lot of after-action work to make sure we can refine our approach. Folks have some feedback about the communications or, the clarity information. We will incorporate that into the work that we do moving forward. And we're also going to focus on making sure, in coordination with our state and federal partners, people understand that not only does the city need to focus on its own preparedness, but every household, every business needs to do the same thing. And so we mentioned several times during this event, there are some best practices that have existed for a really long time about what you need to do for your family, for your business, to make sure you're prepared when it comes to drinking water. And I'll just repeat it for everyone here. You should have 3 days of drinking water on hand, 1 gallon per person. And that means that if you have to store water in your house, do that. You can use your tap. Just get some containers and store water in your house. Try and make sure you have fresh water, okay? And this is information we're going to try and incorporate in city communications so people can access it anytime they want. But it's important. And so this vigilance isn't just about what the city needs to do, but all of our residents need to do it. It could be an event like this that comes up. It could be a hurricane. It could be power outages. It could be a number of things which make it hard for people to access water moving forward. And so having that stored in your home is really important.
So just one understanding, if this happens again, you would go about it the same exact way that you did on.
That's not what I said. What I said was we will go back and evaluate through after action work, and then we'll find ways to refine what we did this time.
On the slide that you showed prior to this one, on the second bullet point, when you're talking about the DE,
Do you want to go back?
standards, it seems like it would put a little bit of doubt in people's mind if you haven't hit, maybe I misunderstood you, if you haven't hit the DEP standards yet.
No, okay, let me help you. Let me help you. So the DEP standard isn't about the minimal levels of anything. Again, we have had zero contamination. So there's really no standard to worry about because there's nothing in the water. What we're talking about is the frequency and the duration of this type of testing, which is focused on this one contaminant. And what I should probably clarify for people is that there's a number of things that can be in the water in the Delaware River. It's a river. It's used by industrial users. So there's a normal range of things that we always do to test. Things like the early warning system are very useful because they tell us if something outside of that normal range is going on. So these chemicals are outside of that normal range because they're related to a spill that took place. And thankfully, we got the information we needed. We adapted our approach to a special circumstance during this event. So what we will do is work with DEP, who's monitoring on site in Bristol Township, to understand whether that special circumstance is persisting, and when they're comfortable that it's not persisting, and we can start to go back to the normal way that we test water. Do you understand? Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask, people, this press conference was on 30 minutes, and people are probably watching this going, whatever it's going on. People are still out here panic buying and do 36 packs of, bottled water. What messaging would you relay to them with all the information?
Save your money. Save your money. You open your tap, get a glass, a bottle. Don't pay people for water that you don't need to buy.
I think to follow up on what she asked earlier, Dr. Pedigo, yesterday you did say this was very low toxicity to begin with, relatively low toxicity, and probably dispersed through the water fairly quickly. Some of the people we've interviewed on our own have kind of made the same point and have said it's very, very low likelihood that this ever would have been a problem. To follow up on what she's saying, is there any sense of maybe the alert, at least the initial alert, that said something wrong with water might have been a little too alarming?
Yeah, so, the first alert is that there was a spill. And so everyone's kind of making judgments about what that means. The information that came from us on Saturday was that we're working on this situation. if people have ways that they can conserve water so we can get, don't use water you don't need to use, it gives us more time in order to figure out what's going on. On Sunday morning, the message was, if you're uncomfortable with what's going on, you may want to buy water. I think one of the things is that got interpreted by a lot of people that rush out and stockpile cases of water. It wasn't the message. I mean, everyone in the room can look and see what we actually said, and that wasn't the message. That is a risk. It is a risk. It's a fine line. You have to balance being transparent and the anxiety that information, providing information creates in the public. This is the 21st century. This is an issue that all folks in government, all levels of government have to struggle with a little bit. We're committed to transparency. And so we all have something to learn. I think the public has something to learn from this. Vigilance is important. It helps us guarantee that people are safe. And so moving forward, I think, one of the things that folks should consider is just how to interpret the information they're getting from the city. And we will work on that together with the public just to make sure people understand they can trust the information that they're getting from the city. Cheryl?
Sorry, I'm short. I agree with what Mike just said, but I just wanted to add, what we were looking at Sunday morning was a situation where we had a spill of chemicals about which we don't have a lot of information. We thought it was a very low-risk exposure, but not telling people that those substances are in the water is also a risk, right? And, with what we knew Sunday morning, it felt important to be transparent, not to, we were looking at getting results back after potentially, if there had been any contaminants at a very low level, but after those contaminants might have flowed through taps. And so, this is in any crisis, right? You're making decisions with the best information you have at that moment. And the best information we had at that moment was, this is probably an extremely low risk, but people might end up with some contaminant in their water. We're really committed that what flows from our taps, what I drink, what all of us drink, should not be contaminated, and we should be able to say that to people always. So, this has been a very complicated situation. We are absolutely going to do after actions and look at our messaging and try to figure out how do we, because, everything gets coalesced into tiny messages on social media. And so something very nuanced became something very short. So, that's something we want to learn from. But the possibility that we would not have told people that these chemicals were in their water, knowing it's very low risk, but knowing that we can't say it's zero risk, that felt important to share.
Mike, we also went ahead and we'll get a soundbite in Spanish. So basically just the gist of the message for the governor to do.
Thank you.
Sería un mensaje básicamente muy resumido de todo lo que le acabo de mencionar, la importancia del anuncio del día de hoy para nuestros televidentes que han estado buscando agua, histérico y todo eso. Es algo bien básico y sencillo.
El mensaje que se le está dando a todos los televidentes es de que el agua es segura, no hay ni una contaminación, los resultados salieron de que no hay ni un peligro, todos pueden tomar agua, pueden usarla para bañarse, pueden usarla para cocinar, pueden utilizarla para bañarse y les agradecemos a todos por su atención. The last question is, are they going to continue making tests so that everybody feels safe with the water?
Yes, we will continue to test the water to ensure that it's safe and contaminant-free. And we will work with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection to determine how long we need to keep testing at that elevated level.
Así es, vamos a continuar realizando pruebas para asegurarnos de que el agua continúe libre de contaminantes y vamos a estar trabajando a la par con el Departamento de Prevención, el Departamento de Protección Medioambiental de Pensilvania, hasta que ellos nos indiquen que ya paremos de hacer pruebas para asegurarnos que no existe ningún contaminante.
5 more minutes. Are there any other questions?
Just one more, just relating from one of my colleagues, not sure if this came up during the briefing, but potentially if there is a worse contamination incident in the future, what specific upgrades to the water infrastructure would help the city handle it without customers needing to rely on it?
Revitalization.
It has been discussed, what's your plan to make those?
Yes, so I would encourage people to go online and find the Philadelphia Water Department's drinking water revitalization plan. I got it. And there's 400 projects that are identified in there, a time frame, estimates of costs, and this is the master plan for how we want to really do everything we can to upgrade drinking water for the city of Philadelphia.
It sounds like nobody's detected anything for a few days. A, was there ever a detection in the water of these chemicals? And B, if no one's detecting it, how are you modeling that it's going to be gone?
So I can say there was never any detection in Philadelphia and in the river outside of Philadelphia, but Commissioner Heyman, do you want to speak to what we learned from Aqua?
It's my understanding that it was detected closer to aqua water, but that's understandable because that's where the concentration was closer to aqua. And so, as Mr. Carroll said, the plume traveled, diffused, passed by us, is passing by us. It's been diluted. We've had no positive test outside our area or in our plant.
So when you say this will certainly be gone by Wednesday or Thursday, that's not based on detecting it, that's based on how the river moves.
That's based on the modeling that we've done, and both, and the testing.
And just real quick, when you're saying that it was detected around Aqua's area, does that mean that the tests that you've been conducting here, that the test that was done up there detected the chemical? Is that the latex?
So their test was done immediately after the site, and in order to identify what was going on, they had that capacity to test pretty much immediately. Our testing commenced on Saturday during the day, and none of our tests showed anything. So at that point in time, we couldn't guarantee that the plume had totally passed, and that's why Kelly Anderson's presentation, focusing on the modeling, and the comments we made about the Coast Guard's testing in the river are so important, because that's what's demonstrating that the risk has passed down the Delaware River and it's no longer present in a location where there's any possibility of it coming into the Baxter Water Treatment Plant.
So when you're saying it's never been detected in any of your tests, that's in this region?
Yes.
But the detection was detected in the water by Aqua
Yes.
in Bucks County?
Yes.